there is this movement afoot of social impact in an ESG. How are we doing? And what needs to be the next steps in terms of convincing business leaders that it's in the economic self-interest of their businesses to achieve equality?
So I think many business people understand that, but there is very much a counter movement underway. My colleagues are afraid of being called woke CEOs. I hear that all the time. I don't know what the opposite of that is. Asleep CEOs? I don't know what the opposite of it is. But the fact of the matter is, the great thing about this country is that the freedom we have as a people allows businesses to change this country. The country changes because business changes. Technology, for example, has changed our society in massive ways. I think business has to recognize the concept that if we don't provide people with opportunities for economic stability, then our society is going to continue to fail. You know, I'm working with some companies on what's called 110. The concept is that we're trying to hire 1 million African Americans who lack 4-year degrees over the next 10 years into family-sustaining wage jobs. I'm the son of a janitor. But back in the 60s and the early 70s and the 50s, companies paid a janitor a family-sustaining wage. He could raise a family. He could pay his mortgage. He could even have a used Electra 225, all right? And he had profit sharing. Today, in New York City, if you make a minimum wage, you have to work 120 hours in order to pay the rent in a 1-bedroom apartment. That is not sustainable in this country. And if business continues to view itself as solely a vehicle for creation of wealth for shareholders, then our country's actually going to fail.
That's right. And that's why we've, at the Citizen, tried to champion the stakeholder economy so that corporations have a fiduciary responsibility, not just to shareholders, but to employees, the environment, the community.
The communities in which they operate.
Yeah. But as you say, there is pushback to that, and that's a central tension, I think, undergirding this
It goes to this
divide.
issue. How do we incentivize and reward success, but at the same time create opportunity for everyone? They're not inconsistent. We never viewed them as inconsistent until recently. And I think we've got to, as a society, ask ourselves, how important is it, this whole concept, this whole lens of equality, is that something we still care about? Or do we only care about the ability of a few people to get extraordinarily wealthy? And I think we have to think about that.
I want to talk to you briefly about this idea of moral leadership, which I think the judge exuded in his bones. I think you represent, certainly when you speak truth. To me, the moral test of our times is when someone speaks truth to power after they become powerful, right? And the judge certainly did that. You did that. Talk about that in terms of your willingness to do it, what you risked, especially in the Trump situation, and what is why aren't more people standing up?
Well, I think that what Judge Leon Higginbotham was really talking about was his lived experience, and the same with me. You know, people say it took courage to step down from President Trump's business counsel. Frankly, to be honest, it took more courage to go on for me, okay, coming from where I came from. And when the president made his statements after Charlottesville, there was no way that I could have stayed in there, because it would be to be untrue to my background. I know where I came from, right? This is the reason why I talk about these issues about equality. You know, I grew up in North Philly. My younger sister and I came along in the birth order when the social engineers in Philadelphia experimented with school desegregation. And so we got put on a bus, a subway and a bus, and we went to better schools than were available to us in North Philly. There's no way that I cannot point that out. I am the CEO of Merck because the CEO 3 times removed, decided he no longer wanted to have an all-white management team. So he hires me out of a law firm. They thought that was affirmative action. My colleagues, oh my God, they hired a black person. I sort of did okay. So having had the experience of having people reach into my community, pull me out and give me an opportunity reminds me that I believe I achieved a lot in my life. I'm not going to be apologetic, but I didn't earn the opportunity. And none of us earns the opportunity in the first place. And as a country, we have to make that opportunity broadly available. Talent is broadly distributed. Opportunity is not.